Hi, I'm Riley Hatch. I've been on an amazing journey. There will be plenty of time to talk about that later, but right now I just wanted to spread the latest news of what I have discovered on my journey. I will simply say that through the decision of throwing myself to all that is and accepting everything 100% as me, I came to the realization that I had done every atrocity and every good that has ever been done. And at that moment, having faced the responsibility for everything, I was able, with clear conscience, to, after the horror of it, forgive myself and decide to find out what it was I was supposed to do now that I was in this peaceful state of not anything. Because I realized if I did nothing in this place of peace that I simply would stop or cease to exist. And so as I looked around at all of my friends who had spoke of this place and were trying to constantly be there, I realized as I sat there for a very, very long time that I was going nowhere. But I felt good. But everything around me was coming to a stop, my life, everything I had created. And so I decided I needed to do something and slip back into the world of depreciation, of life and death, where we tend to judge and be judged. And I found no happiness there, and as I studied every belief system I could find and studied and tried to connect with every avatar possible, I finally decided I had to go back to the top. And I decided my place of peace is where I would start. I used to think that was the top. So I went back to my place of peace where I was no longer judging and accepting everything as me, where I had already been, you see, and I decided that even though no one else would go on this journey with me at this point, and I know that many of you have been there, I went ahead and began to explore what I could find in the other parts of myself. And as I popped in and out of so many experiences, and as I added all the knowledge I had from all the seminars and books I had read, as I incorporated numerology, colors, and began to understand the depth and breadth of that knowledge, along with all the astral knowledge and every other thing I could grab, I began to let go and ask for the thing I needed to know and to please finish this, because I kept coming back from this bliss to try to explain the latest thing I knew. And of course at the time I did not know that I was responsible, according to the integrity of consciousness, to get at least one reflection that lives, so my knowledge can be spread. Everyone's responsible for that. So my need to go back and teach became frantic, and I started to teach to everyone until no one would listen. And because I was driving everyone crazy because I was going so fast, and so I had to finally sit down and write a book so that it was in written form, and then I was able to lunge forward again, coming back at every step, trying to grab everyone I love to bring them along with me, which of course I now know is the law of integrity, that every one of us has had to adhere to from the moment that we left the timeless, spaceless place where there was no thing but the thought we had begun to develop and the picture that we had of real life someday, not just magic spells that we learned to make, that we had to hold with consciousness, that if we dropped it, it was not there any longer if we returned. We wanted something that was real, and so we decided that we had to go on a plunge, and that we would, long story short, have to create a telestial world. A world that was traceable through the subatomic world into, of course, the atomic world, and then on into our actual biological organic world. And as we started to push those barriers, just to lunge forward quickly to this body, we of course wanted to be able to see what it looked like on the outside of our Terra, our terrestrial body we had created. And so we developed celestial sight so that we could look back at the Terra, the land we walk on, that which we had come through and made real, This earth, this celestial being floating in space consciousness that we walk upon, ourselves celestial beings, for we no longer have roots to it. If we were to jump off the planet, you'll see we are just as celestial as the planet itself. And suddenly it began to occur to me that maybe we were there, and that I had been going so fast that I had forgotten to notice that we had made it to heaven. For I am a celestial being, I see. I have celestial sight, and as I began to love everything, knowing what we had done together as a consciousness, coming from nothing to all of these separate beings that are separately conscious and no longer attached as a tree is in its terrestrial or terra form, relying upon the terra to feed it, not being able to move or see outside of it, the celestial sight became, and our tears over what it had taken to get there, of course, made the salt water from which we arose. This has been a very painful process, and it has been clearly, as I collected my third eye celestial vision, or the vision of all, actually developing the ability now to see the constructs that move and turn of time and space inside of me, in this timeless spacelessness, timeless because it's forever, spaceless because there's no boundaries, within which we begin to create space and boundaries and move all of creation, in which I stand here as a celestial being already. It appears as though all I need to do is wake up, because if I continue with my cycle of thinking of life and death and don't turn my genetic switches to life now that I finally have my celestial body, I may die, as I see everyone is here, in the land of life and death, of good and evil. The belief in life, the knowledge that we need to die to make it to the heaven that we seek, where we will have a celestial body which of course is made of the telestial, the inner, and the terrestrial. And if you will form the amazing celestial marriage with the celestial consciousness, the infinite potential that became a thought and then finally magically from nothing a thing. That magical thought stuff, that celestial part of us, as we make that female and male, our telestial and terra form, that has now become a celestial sight, and the light of celestial knowledge begins to appear. The record of all begins to float in front of you, and you realize that all time and space fits within your timeless spacelessness. And as you marry that timeless spaceless knowledge, the ability to see all things at all times, to feel all things at all times, and yet to be separately this, live in a life that I have decided considers the good of all in its every step, for everyone must have exactly as I have in order for me to move forward, I found out, for I'll have to go back and teach it if I learn it. So I wish to bring everyone with me. Marry the spiritual nothingness of potential that became a consciousness that created this amazing thing that we dreamed of. Marry that spiritual with this physical, telestial, terrestrial, celestial being that we are. Finish that celestial marriage and turn to positive. That's the true sign. This is not the male sign, this is the male and the female. When you have married all that you are and accepted everything, then by the law of integrity, you have been willing to put all as your purpose, including yourself, equally. For that, you have become worthy of being a celestial being with full consciousness. In fact, you could simply not get full consciousness until you agreed to let everything automatically guide your every step. And in calling for the highest of all of those perspectives combined, you simply let go and let it take you as fast as it could, and boom, you receive your celestial consciousness. An awareness, not just the awareness that you are forever, but an actual constructed vision of all that is created in your third eye, or your celestial vision. You're able to see that and then locate in this time, in a completely physical body, completely with all